All right, guys, here we are. So I have made a presentation about liquidity pools. I've created a fun little example so we can walk through and learn about it together. And the reason I'm doing this is because in the Discord chat, we talk about liquidity pools a lot, and some people don't quite understand. I know at first I didn't quite understand what liquidity pools were. So I kind of use that as a, compass, that if I didn't quite understand something and then I figured out about it, there's probably other people who are also maybe in the fog. Maybe you've got somewhat of an idea, but don't quite understand why people keep talking about liquidity pools as soon as there's any price action. So that's what I'm really hoping that you'll get out of this presentation. But I'm also going to talk about some of the things that CoffeeZilla said that just don't make any sense. All right, so let's get started. Liquidity pools. Well, what is liquidity? Liquidity is a term that is used to describe the efficiency or the ease with which an asset can be converted to cash and vice versa. But here's the key part: without affecting its market price. So cash is, by definition, the most liquid. Cash is cash. But when we start thinking about liquidity for accounting purposes, perhaps too, if you have something that is perhaps really rare and there's a very small market for it, it might have value, but it might take a while before you find that buyer. Or, for example, if you have something, but there's a lot of selling costs that go into being able to sell it, to advertise it. And so even though it might have a value, by the time you sell it and have cash in hand, that price might have depreciated a bit, or you have lost a little bit on that. So when we're talking about liquidity in terms of crypto, we're really talking about the ease in which people can buy and sell crypto, that there's a buyer for every seller, and also at the prices that they're wanting. I'm going to move my screen up a little bit here. So at one far end, if all of the tokens were sold and if all the tokens were held and there were none available, we would have no liquidity because there's no more for any other person to buy. Although there may be people who want to sell. The other end, if all of the tokens were available and nobody wanted to buy, there'd also really not be any liquidity either because there's no buying and selling. Anyway, so liquidity is the measure of whether or not there's an available seller for an available buyer and the prices are around the same price and vice versa. All right, so Uniswap, this is what we use. So Uniswap is what facilitates us finding buyers with our sellers, and they use these liquidity pools. So the example that I'm going to use, and oh man, I guess I'm going to have to be chasing my screen this whole time, is created a fictitious example for us. So here we go. Crayon TL, a token developer, had an idea for a new token, the Crayon token. Of its many features, there would only be 100 CTs or Crayon tokens minted and deployed all at the beginning. Crayon TL mints these tokens and they go directly into his wallet because, after all, he was the one that developed them. And that's what happens when you develop a coin. So I know this is one of the things that CoffeeZilla pointed to in his video where he said, oh, look, there was a million tokens and they were given to TL, tech lead, for free. He didn't have to do anything for it. And yeah, that's exactly that. The tokens were minted by tech lead, and that's why we see them end up exactly in the wallet. And in our scenario for our Crayon token, that's what we would see too. We would see them being minted and going into Crayon TL's wallet for deployment. Okay, so I'm going to move my screen down here. Here's Crayon token liquidity pool, because it's one thing to mint 100 Crayon tokens, but unless you have a way of getting them to someone else, I mean, theoretically, you could post on Facebook and say, hey guys, I've got these Crayon tokens. Does anyone want to buy them? And then you look for buyers, and then someone might say, hey, I'll buy, 20 of your Crayon tokens for $20. You send them to their wallet. They send you $20. and that transaction can happen. But in that regard, it's also kind of private. People don't know that all these transactions are going on. So with Uniswap being this decentralized exchange, we can see everything that's going on, all of our buys, all of our sells, and that's what the liquidity pool is essentially showing us. So here we go. Crayon TL has 100 Crayon tokens, and he's going to deploy them into the liquidity pool. With Uniswap and V3, you have to choose a range in which those tokens will deploy. And in this scenario, he's going to put all of the tokens in the range of $0 to $10. There we go. And because they are all of the tokens are distributed evenly, so there's going to be 10 tokens here at the $1, 10 at $2, 10 at $3, 10 at $4, 10 at $5. You get the picture. So we've got 100 tokens, 10 in each dollar, 10 in each pool. All right, let's go on. Okay, so now we have a buyer, Magenta. Magenta wants to buy 15 Crayon tokens. Right now, it's trading at $1. Let me move my screen again. There we go. So right now, Crayon token is valued at $1. And that's because the next token to buy would be $1. Even though we've got tokens spread across all the different liquidity pools, the next one would be at the $1 mark. So Magenta comes along and she wants to buy 15 Crayon tokens. How much will it cost? Well, even though it's trading at $1, that's what we would see it, she wants to buy 15. It's not going to cost her 15. It's actually going to cost her $20. And that's because we only have 10 Crayon tokens at the $1 mark. And the other 5 that she wants to buy to complete that order are actually sitting at the $2 mark. So she'll buy 10 CT at $1 and the remaining 5 at $2. And in total, it's going to cost $20 for her to acquire those 15 tokens. Then the price will move up and it will now be $2 for the Crayon token. We'll have a market cap of $200 because market cap is just the combination of what the token is trading for times how many tokens are in circulation. And in this situation, there's 100. When we take a look at the pools, they'll record, the statement will look like this for our total value locked up. We will have $20 or 20 of Magenta's dollars right here. And then we'll also still have 85 Crayon tokens left. All right, so let's move on. When we take a look at the wallet distribution, I mean, this is probably pretty self-explanatory. Magenta now holds 15% of the market share. She's got 15 out of the 100 Crayon tokens. Uniswap liquidity pools now hold 85% of those tokens. And we're going to continue this example on because now we've got more buyers. Red is going to come in and buy 5. Purple will come in and buy 30. Then orange at 25, black at 10, and green at 15. So again, this is just a hypothetical, fictitious scenario that I've created to hopefully walk through and really explain how the liquidity pools work. Okay, so red now purchases 5 Crayon tokens. How much is this going to cost him? And I got to move my screen around again. I am so sorry, guys. And currently it's $2, and it's actually going to cost him $10. And that's because there's still 5 tokens left in the liquidity pool at the $2 mark. So he'll come in, his purchase, because it's next in line, will fill at $2 a token, and his cost will be $10. The market cap will now move to $300 because the price to buy the next Crayon token would be $3. The next one's going to come out of the $3 pool. In our total value locked up, we've got 80 Crayon tokens left to buy, and we also now have $30 deposited. Everything on this side to the right of the red line represents in million tokens example, but it represents the USDC that is there. Anything to the left of the red line is the current price, represents tokens available to be purchased and at what price point. Okay, so now we have magenta holds 15%, well, yeah, 15%. Her value, or she, her, him, who knows, will be $45. Red now holds 5, and in the liquidity pools, there's still 80 left over. So that's what our distribution will look like. Okay, purple comes along. Purple wants to buy 30 crayon tokens. How much will it cost? Well, as you've guessed, purple, yeah, purple's now gonna have to buy from 3 different liquidity pools. Purple has to take 10 from the $3, 10 from the $4, and 10 are going to come from the $5 liquidity pool. In total, it's going to cost $120 to acquire those 30 crayons. The price will now bump up to $6 because the next crayon token will come from the $6 liquidity pool. And if we took a look at our total value locked up, we would see we've got 50 crayon tokens left to buy, and we've got $150 left behind, like kind of swapped out. So you can see like these, in actuality, we don't have, you know, one person buying, then another person buying, then another person buying. There's buys and sells that go on, but I'll talk about the sells after. For now, just imagine that someone has come in and swapped out a crayon token for essentially $1. And that's what we're seeing in here. Okay, so now magenta holds 15, red holds 5, purple holds 30, and the liquidity pools are down to just 50 crayon tokens. Orange, now orange purchases, it's that 25 crayon tokens. How much will it cost? Well, let's see. So orange is going to have to buy from 3 different liquidity pools, the $6, the $7, and then come up and get the final 5 out of the $8 liquidity pool. I think you guys are getting the point of it at this point now. The price will move up to $8, and the market cap will now be $800. The total value locked up, we're looking at only 25 crayon tokens left. We've got $320 sitting in our liquidity pools. Magenta holds 15, red holds 5, purple holds 30, orange holds 25, and the liquidity pools are left to 25. Okay, so last one. Oh, not the last one. I think we got 2 more people, but I'll just rush through these. Okay, so black purchases 10 crayons. How much will it cost? It's going to cost him $85. 5 are going to come out of the $8 pool. 5 are going to come out of the $9 pool. The price moves up to $900. The market cap changes to $900. And that's what our total value locked up looks like. We've got 15 crayon tokens left to buy. All right, green comes along and he buys up the last 15 crayon tokens. He's going to pull 5 from the $9 pool. And then when that's exhausted, the last remaining 10 are going to come from the $10 pool. And it's going to cost him $145. Now, at this point, there is no more liquidity left. I guess you could say it'll be $10, but pretty much we're all out of crayon token. There's no more to buy. That's what it'll look like. Market cap, $1,000. When we're taking a look at the actual liquidity pools, it's going to have a little, it's going to look like this, because what we're going to see is that's $100 in our $10 pool, 90 in our $9 pool, 80 in our $80 pool, 70 in our $70 pool, 60 in our $60 pool, and so on. Because each of these pools had 10 tokens. So 10 tokens at $5 is 50, right? When there was 10 tokens here, they got swapped out for 40 USDC, 30, and so on. So let's take a look at our wallet distribution, because here's a few interesting things to consider. So magenta holds 15%, red holds 5%, purple holds 30%, orange holds 25%, black holds 10%, green holds 15%. Liquidity pools hold nothing. Now, remember at the beginning of this, it was Crayon TL that created all of these tokens. But if you take a look, there's no value there represented for him. So where is his value or her value? Well, that value comes from the liquidity pools. Oops, let me pop this up here. Because essentially, the creator or the developer put all of the tokens up for sale into the liquidity pool saying, here you go, here they are. And people came and they bought them throughout the range. So while Crayon TL is not a holder of any CT at the moment, what Crayon TL has is the USDC that had purchased the Crayon tokens. As well, will have earned Uniswap liquidity pool transaction fees. This isn't a scam. So when CoffeeZilla talks about TL or tech lead having, put his money into the liquidity pools and is earning money off of all these transactions, that's not something that was, creatively designed by tech lead. That is something that anyone who wants to be a liquidity provider for any token in Uniswap receives. And that's your reward for putting your tokens or your USDC or whatever pairings it is in that liquidity pool. That's your reward. Those are your transaction fees. That's your cut. So that isn't a scam. It is just how it works. That's your reward for being a market maker. But it is important to note, though, that now that all of the tokens have been purchased and there are no left, any of the money that is in the liquidity pool, that would be accessible by the person who put those tokens, who contributed to the liquidity pool. So in this situation, it would be the Crayon TL. So the only way for any movement at this point is for either a Crayon token holder to sell some of their Crayon token, a Crayon token to contribute some of their, I've got my face in the way, a Crayon token holder to contribute some of their Crayon token to the liquidity pool, or if that creator, Crayon TL, rug pulls. And this is what I wanted to talk about, because there's a lot of times we talk about this concept of rug pulling. And this would be where, at this point, where all the tokens are sold, that USDC gets pulled out and then nobody can sell. There's no money left for the holders to sell. Okay, so we're going to take a look at this first example. So one of the Crayon token holders sell some of their tokens. So let's just say it's Purple. Purple bought in when Crayon token was $3, and they want to sell 15 of their Crayon tokens. We're going to assume that Crayon TL has not closed out the liquidity range and hasn't actually done anything to it. So it's still there, it's still active. So just like the Crayon tokens were put into the liquidity pool so that people could buy, well, what was swapped out was the USDC. And so now there's USDC that if people want to sell, there's USDC available for them to sell into. Okay, so here's our liquidity pool. And Purple sells 25 Crayon tokens. How much is Purple going to receive? So that is going to be $230. And that's because Purple is going to first sell through the $10 pool, then the $9 pool, and then half of the $8 pool. 10 tokens will, and then the price will come down to $8. Everything on the left-hand side of the red line represents tokens that are now available to be purchased, and they're available to be purchased in this specific range. So there's going to be 5 available to be purchased at the $8 mark. There's going to be 10 at the $9 and 10 at the $10. And if at this point more people wanted to buy in, it would follow that same pattern that we saw earlier, first come, first serve sort of thing. Then anything on the left-hand side of that line, as you can see, represents any of the USDC that was swapped out when people were buying and is now there available for when people want to sell. But that initial set, that initial range that was set where there was 10 tokens per every pool, because that was in that range, that will still be honored. And in this situation, we're assuming there's only one liquidity provider and they've provided that one range. We'll talk about how V3 actually works, but essentially there are multiple, anyone can be a liquidity provider. There isn't anything special. That is part of what makes this DeFi and decentralized. But you can imagine how much more technical this would get when you start adding on multiple people's ranges, because you can do any kind of range that you want in V3. All right, let's move on, because the next example would be, so we're just taking a look at these two positions. So before the sale, the market cap was 1,000, and these were everyone's positions. After the sale of those tokens, the market cap dropped down to $800, and this was where everybody's positions is. This is just a fact. This is just a function of multiplying $8 by the number of tokens that those colors were holding. Okay, so moving on. Oh yeah, and so the reason, if you went to go here and you went to go add up all of these positions, they would not add up to the $800. That's because there's also now 25 crayon tokens in the liquidity pool that is not added in here. 25 times 8 is 200, and that's how you get that. We have remaining in USDC, there's still another $320, and that's distributed along that graph there. Okay, so now let's say instead of Purple selling 25 tokens, Purple adds 25 tokens to the liquidity pool. Again, anyone can do this. So all of the tokens are sold, and Purple says, you know what? These things are very, very valuable. And instead of pricing them at $10, I'm going to take a risk and I'm going to price these up at the 20. And I shouldn't even say it's a risk. At this point, anyone that wants to buy, the Purple is going to dictate where that next price is, because there's no liquidity available. So Purple goes ahead and adds 25 crayon tokens to the $20 to $25 range. This would be 5 tokens in each of the $20, the $21, the $22, the $23, and then the $24 pool. Price now bumps up to $20 because that is where the next token is available to be purchased. And now let's say people wanted these tokens. They said, great, Purple, you know what? We've got liquidity in the pool. There's 25 more tokens to be purchased, and other buyers just gobble these right up. Once that happens, this is what the liquidity distribution will look like. Again, we're all out of million tokens. It's not million tokens, crayon tokens. What am I talking about? We're all out of crayon tokens, and the USDC has been swapped and left behind. So now let's think of this situation, because typically people start accusing the creator of the coins of the rug pulls. But what if, I'm jumping ahead of myself here. So that was, the same market cap when the price was $10. After Purple went and added the 25 tokens to the higher liquidity range, the market cap now is $2,500. That's the distribution based on how many holdings each of these people have. And here's the new buyers down here. And so now we've got USDC in the liquidity pool of $550, and that was from the original Crayon TL's contribution. And then we've got 550 more over here from when Purple went in and added 25 tokens to the liquidity range. All right, so now this is what I was getting at. What happens if Purple removes liquidity from the $20 to $25 range? All All right, so it would look like this. Basically, so when you do your range in the liquidity pools, when you put up whatever it is, usually you might do if you want to stay around the price, you might do a pairing of both the USDC and whatever token you are pairing it to. But in this case, Purple said, oh, here's all of my crayon tokens, and they're way up here at the 20 to 25 range. As people sell through them, they're swapping them out, and USDC is given. That is something that Crayon Token can then take out, right? So Crayon Token essentially said, you know what? I want to sell my 25 of my Crayon Token. And instead of selling into just selling them and back, I'm going to become a liquidity provider. I'm going to see if I can get a little bit more money for my tokens. I'm going to sell them, and then I'm going to cash out the USDC. So all of that liquidity is gone, and the price falls all the way down to $10. It's because there's no more liquidity for people to sell their tokens into at that price. And I gotta move my face again, 1 second. After, this is what the market cap looks like. So we're back down at $1,000. That's how it all looks. And the new buyers who had bought in for $625 in the previous example prior to taking out the liquidity now have a position of $250.